Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Empowered Self podcast with me, Krista Long, and if it's your first time here, you're very welcome. This is a space for gentle conversations about growth, courage, and the little steps that help us become more of who we really are. Today's episode is for anyone who's ever had a quiet thought in the back of their mind. Maybe someday I'll write a book, or I feel like I have a story to share, but I don't know where to start. So many people carry that dream for years. They think it's too late, or they think they're not qualified enough. Or perhaps they wait for the perfect moment that never quite arrives. My guest today is someone who helps people turn that quiet dream into something real. Orla Kelly is the founder of Orla Kelly Publishing. She works with coaches, consultants, professionals, and anyone else who feel the nudge to write a book. She supports them through the whole journey, from the very first idea to holding the finished product in their hands. Orla, you're so very welcome. It's lovely to have you here. How are you today?
Thanks very much, Crystal, for having me here. And you totally summed it up, because they're the type of experiences I encounter all the time. Somebody who feels their book isn't good enough. They've waited years. They're almost apologising to me. And I say, that's perfect. I mean, sadly, the graveyard is full of broken dreams, unfulfilled promises, and the books that people always wanted to write and never got around to writing them. And if I can help, bridge that gap and help somebody to write and publish their book, then it's all worthwhile for me.
And Orla, to begin, I'd love if you could share a little bit about yourself and how this work found its way to you.
Totally by accident. I was an environmental scientist and consultant in my past life, and I call it my past life because between what I was doing back then and what I'm doing now is chalk and cheese. Couldn't be more different. I stumbled into it by accident purely when I was a stay-at-home mother when my kids were young, and when my son was about 9, we were always avid readers from the library, our local library here. And one day we had ran out of library books to read. So my son, who was about 9, Michael, he started to write a little story for his sister about her little stuffed toy, Owlie. And it was time for bed. And so he said, Mom, I'm not finished the story yet. If I go to bed, so will you finish it? And of course, any frazzled parent will promise these earth, moon and stars when it's bedtime just to get that little bit of a break. So I found myself saying, yeah, of course, yeah, just go to bed. And then after I put them to bed, I sat down at this scrap of paper left on the kitchen table and a pencil next to it. And in that writing, I saw something magnificent and magical. It was a story of childhood wonder, stepping back into the innocence, the creativity, the imagination that I thought only belonged in a child's mind, because I had long since abandoned that because my career had been very technical, very analytical. But suddenly, when you're a parent, kids don't want technical, analytical mom. They want fun mom who's creativity, who's got imagination, who can play. So that whole side of me started to come out when I had my kids. But I had an even bigger challenge. I now had committed to finishing this little story about a little owl who found a little butterfly crying perched on the branch of a tree because it wanted to fly to the rainbow to change the colour of its wings. And in that story, I saw self-esteem, I saw self-image, I saw feelings of unworthiness, but I also saw hope in making the world a better place. And all these little lessons I wanted to teach my kids as a parent suddenly came back to me. I had the opportunity through story to create and expand on the magical work that my son had done. So I found myself just stepping into this zone whereby this just words and settings seemed to unfold in my mind, and I couldn't write fast enough to keep up. And by the end of the night, I was exhausted, but I really felt I had done justice to his little story. And they were delighted with it. And every night then they would say, can you write a bit more? Can you write a bit more? And I used to read them while I wrote. And then one evening, my daughter, who was 7, Emer, said, Mom, will you print it out for us? And I said, out of nowhere, I'll do one better. I'm going to teach myself how to publish it. No idea where it came from. I hadn't even Googled it, knew nothing what was involved. And she squealed with delight. And suddenly I realized, oh no, here's another thing now I have to commit to. And I sat down every night when they went to bed, and I looked up YouTube, I looked up Google, I looked up everything, and I just figured it out myself how to do it. But this book was only ever for my children's eyes only. We children don't keep anything to themselves. So when I got it printed, I taught myself how to design it and publish it on Amazon, purely to get my kids print copies, because you can get print copies on Amazon. And I was very happy to leave it at that, leave it under the radar, and just have it for my kids. But kids keep nothing quiet. They told their friends. Suddenly, friends' parents were stopping me in the street, asked me for copies. Kids don't keep it quiet. They went into their school, told the teachers. Suddenly, the school asked me to come down and read a story to the children. So I was expecting to go into maybe Michael and Emer's classroom. Instead, they had the whole school gathered together in the hall, the entire school from juniors, infants to sixth class, to listen to my story. And I've even goosebumps when I'm even just recalling this, because I remember it was like shock and awe. I just couldn't believe it. And seeing these little faces captivated, and I then realized for the first time the power of story.
So, Orla, I love that story. Aren't kids great for helping us to tap back into our imagination and our creativity?
Totally. And even today, I like to keep the balance right between, the business, the non-fiction type of books, and also the poetry, the children's stories, the fiction, because I think it's important that we all keep our brain balanced.
And it's a lovely story hearing how your children had to tap into your creativity and your imagination, but they also kind of gave you that encouragement to go down the entrepreneurial route as well. From instead of just printing the book out, you did one better. You went to learn to publish it for yourself, and then took yourself on that journey. And it's become such a hit. One little book that started with your children, and it's led you down the path then into your own publishing company.
It did, because, I was delighted then, just that I was down in the school, and of course my kids think mom is famous then, and she's going to be the next J.K. Rowling, and then reality hits, and you still have to, do your normal stuff that you do. And to me, it was only ever for my kids. But then I was at a networking event, and just to make conversation, I remember I told them just what I did. And of course, it turns out the person who was standing next to me overheard and said, "Oh, do you know, that's actually a skill. Don't knock it down. You might have done it for your kids, but you could do it for other people." And she told me there was an entrepreneur program closing the next day for me to get my application in, and that they could, if I was successful, they could help turn it into a viable business idea. So here I was, went home that evening, filled out my application form, and long story short, I got awarded a place on an entrepreneur program for 6 months to help me turn it into a business. And back in 2014, then Orla Kelly Publishing was born.
Wow, that's a wonderful story. Just going from the kids prompting the journey, and then going to a networking event, and then getting involved with the entrepreneurial networking groups, and to hear you are years later. Was it 20 years, Orla, plus?
14. We're now 12, is it 12 years now? I think I'm in business, something like that.
12
But
years.
I suppose the one thing that's always stuck with me is, because I started off as, I suppose, an author myself, I've never forgotten that sense of vulnerability and imposter syndrome, and fear of judgment. What if people think I've notions? Who do I think I am? All of this, just fear and judgment and vulnerability. Even that, I still remember that today. And so now everybody who comes my way, whether we work together or not, even having a conversation, I'm just so mindful of that you're trusting, you're in a real position of trust, holding that trust for somebody when you're working with them, because they're trusting you with their memoirs, or their deepest thoughts and feelings and emotions, everything they've poured into. And this book is an expression of themselves. Even if it's their imagination, it's still an expression of their identity. And I never want to lose that sense of connection with another person when I'm working with them.
So on that note, Orla, so when a person comes to you with an idea about a book, what's the first step in the journey with you?
Yeah, well, I suppose if it's most of the time they may have it written already. If it's a children's story or say poetry, they'll have it written and they'll come to me. I'd always love to get it published. If it's say a non-fiction book, they may also have it written. Like say, for example, if they have a keen interest in a particular topic, they could be a historian, or they may have an amazing family story and they've written it, but they may be unsure. Is it good enough? Opening a Pandora's box here. They need reassurance and they also need validation. And I will never take on work if I feel it'll make the person in a worse position than before, or can be detrimental to their family or to society as a whole. And I do have to turn down a number of books. Um, so, but for somebody maybe who may be a business person, um, who may want to write a book to, show their thought leadership or for a legacy building, or maybe want to attract, certain opportunities for them, then I absolutely work with them very closely. It's strategically, but it's strategic without them selling their soul. It's strategic with their best interest at heart, and not just their best interest at heart, but also their readers. I have to consider, because it's not just enough that I work just with them. I have to be mindful of who this book is for, who needs to read it, and why. What does the reader get from reading it? And also, you yourself as a writer, what do you want the book to achieve for you? So I need to keep all of this in mind when I'm working with somebody and when I'm engaging with their content, to make sure it's the best book for them, not just for them, but overall, that's going to stand the test of time and it's going to do what it needs to do versus just being words on a page.
Absolutely. And I suppose I love the idea that many people carry a book inside them that they want to share for various reasons, and not necessarily because they want to be famous or because they've lived something, learned something, or discovered something that could help someone else. When people come to you, what kinds of stories or messages are they usually holding? Is it just to get a book published, or as you say, it's something that's very important to them, like leaving behind a legacy?
More and more, and I think it's actually since COVID, people realize now that life is fragile. Life is very much changed, and people now are more aware. I can't keep putting this off. Why am I putting this off? I just need to do this. I was actually at my busiest during COVID because all we had was time. So all the things that people put off doing, they had time to finish their book and, work to get it published. And there's such a feeling of accomplishment and achievement that out of all of this terrible things that happened, this one good thing came out of it, So really, more so now, people are coming at it with a deeper intention now versus just, I want to be published author because I want to be visible. That's ego talking.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas I like to work with really genuine people who know they have an important message to share, want to share it, feel the time is right, or know that there never will be a right time. So they're just going to bite the bullet and do it, and just trust in the person that they're working with. So really now I do feel it's more that they're being guided and directed, and it's more for a bigger purpose that they want to write it versus just an ego trip.
And I suppose when you come to talk about supporting authors, what feels more meaningful to you when you're helping them or supporting?
We have to have a meaningful relationship because you know yourself, we all have probably worked in the past with people that we just don't gel, don't see eye to eye. And there's no one who's right or wrong if you're being honest about it. It's just personality clash or different values. Often it's a clash of values or a misalignment of values, whereby what would be important for me in how I conduct myself every day, both personally and professionally, and how I work with those who I do work with. My values have to align with their values. If there's a disconnect, then the relationship is not going to flow as well. And unfortunately, their content and my suggestions are not going to gel, and it's going to always feel almost like hard work. And that's not fair for them, and it's not fair for me, So I'm learning a lot more to trust my gut versus before. I think I was trying to be a people pleaser. I was trying to just, take on every job, and because I didn't want to let anyone down. And now I realize, no, I can't do that because, I will ultimately suffer because I will be exhausted. I will probably be not giving myself the best I can be because I'm constantly having to defend why I'm doing things a certain way or having to over explain, and there will be misalignment in my values and how we work together. So really, I am more discerning now in who I work with.
Yeah, and I hear you. And, it comes down to really having that connection. You need to have a connection with someone, and you need to be aligned in terms of the values and the goals of taking an idea from concept to the end. And as you said, like as well, it has to feel right. It has to feel like not a perfect fit, but some kind of common ground.
Absolutely.
And Orla, there's for me, I think there's so many myths around publishing. Some people think you have to wait for a traditional publisher, like Penguin Books or people like that, and others think self-publishing is quick and easy. From your experience, what does the journey really look like from the first idea to the finished book? And is self-publishing, I know it's not like Random House or Penguin Books or anything like that, but it has its own certain niche, I suppose.
Yeah, it does. And I always say, for anybody, if you're looking at, well, which option should I work with? I always feel, well, what would you prefer? Just because somebody else did it a different way, you've got to think, well, if you want to go down the traditional route, have you got a lot of time in your hands and you don't mind sending off lots of different letters, talking about your book, sending samples, and don't mind getting either never hearing back or waiting maybe several months hearing back and receiving lots of rejections. And if you're keeping that hope alive, then absolutely, if you don't mind doing that. Whereas if you want to feel like, one, I've got control over my work, I've got control over what the cover design looks like. My tone of voice and how my natural language communication style will be kept, and it won't be edited out by maybe somebody else's editor. Whereas when they're working for me and on my behalf, I have a bigger say in how the book will be designed and published, and also down to the content in the book and also what happens to the book. So really, if you want to have more, I suppose, control and ownership over your work, to be free to update it, edit it at any time, share it as you wish, then I would definitely go down the road of independently publishing your book. Again, I always think, do your due diligence and always go on recommendations. Unfortunately, a lot of people come to me, they have been badly burned. They may have had unsolicited emails sent to them from companies claiming to be either publishers, or they may be publishers saying, oh, we found your work online and we love what you do, etc. And they're feeding their vulnerability, and but also a little bit of, people love to be praised, and you love to feel that oh my gosh, my work has been recognized, people love my work. And there's always, it's just a way in for them to build trust, and then, to say, we'd love to offer you a publishing deal. And then people have come to me and said, oh, we've gone off and we've told everyone, publishers offered us a deal, they want to publish us. And then when it comes to the small print, they have to pay a lot of money to get their book published. And they're too embarrassed to go back and admit it wasn't all it was seemed. And then they end up paying the money. But it never feels very authentic and transparent. So I always feel, do your due diligence, look up Google reviews, get proper recommendations from people who have gone with a particular publisher or a particular route. And also trust your gut. If something seems too good to be true, the chances are it is. And unfortunately, with the age of AI, people can make websites in a second and put up logos to say as seen on CNN, and they're just logos, and they're not genuine. So I always feel, go based on your gut and based on proper recommendations.
Orla, I know we've spoken in the past as well that you have you like to build up a relationship with your authors and the people you work with, and you nurture them through the whole process. So what does that look like, how you nurture them and bring them through the whole process?
Yeah, I get to know the person first. To me, it's very much the person first, the book second, because you have to have a relationship with the person. Like, for example, any of the books that are even a few books on my bookshelf behind, even if you were to say to me, go to the top shelf and starting from left to right, pick the fifth book and just take it off your bookshelf and tell me a bit about the author, and tell me a bit about the book. I will be able to tell you as much about the author, as also the book, because I still remember that person. So it's all about building relationships. And also a lot of my clients, they would, stay in touch with me over years. And sometimes they come to me for advice. I may have, I got this email here. What do you think of this? Or have you ever come across this company? I just got this thing through my email. And they still trust me. There is a relationship of trust that's there. And I just feel that my reputation, my company's name is Orla Kelly Publishing, so I don't hide behind a different name that can disappear overnight and start off. So by me putting my name to my business is me almost like putting my stamp on my business. This is who you work with. This is who I am.
And is there a particular story or client moment that stayed with you?
There is actually. There's and he's still alive to this day, because actually his niece just messaged me recently. Joe, I always remember Joe. Joe was probably about 80, 82, I think. I think he's 91 now, still hale and hearty. I think he's in a nursing home. His solicitor, who was also my solicitor, reached out to me. He had come in to do his last will and testimony to his solicitor, and he pulled out of his pocket a typed out poem for her, and read it out and said, "I'm gifting you this poem. This is for you to thank you for helping me with my will, and it's been such a pleasure to work with you over the years." And she so fell in love with his poem. She said to him, "Well, what are you doing with it, typed up and in your pocket? Why is it not in a book?" And he sheepishly admitted that he had this for years, lifelong desire to have his poetry published, but he felt it was just foolishness, and, like, who would he to be getting his book published? And he was 82 years old. And anyway, she trusted me, thankfully, because as you can imagine, often I'm dealing with vulnerable members of society that could be taken advantage of. And I felt so chuffed that she actually trusted me and my business for her to make the connection. And he was Cork-based like myself. And I remember, I going out to his house and, him talking about his poems and him working with him on his computer, and then, he was nifty on the computer and putting things on a memory stick and taking them away to be designed and working with him on everything. But I always remember just the delight when I actually got to knock on his door and hand him over a box of books I had designed and printed and got published for him, and got it up on Amazon and got him his own copies. He wanted the books to be small enough to fit in his jacket pocket, so when he's out and about, he could hand to somebody or give to his nephews. And it was just such a poignant moment, just because he waited, like, he said all his life he's always wanted to have his book poetry. So 82 years almost he has waited, you could say, to have his poetry done. We went on to do 2 books together, and he was absolutely delighted. He continued on writing. He's now in a nursing home, but hale and hearty. And it was just so comforting for me to even hear that recently. But so Joe stands out because sadly, other people have gone to their grave without finishing their book, or, they have put it off. And that is just such a shame. I mean, don't be like Joe. Don't wait 82 years to get your book done.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And it goes to show it's never too late.
It's never too late. A lot of people come to me and their book may be 10 years on their computer. And they just feel, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. Or my kids were younger now and now I can finish it. Or I was just waiting to change jobs. My life just got very chaotic. I had to put things on hold. The thing is, always come back and finish it. You, because sadly, I'd say 99% of books never get finished. And that is such a shame, because once books are published, think of the joy, the entertainment, the knowledge, the experience you're passing on through the power of the written words that'll never get out of print once you have it published, and even having it online. That's what I love about it.
And talk about online, Orla, when the books go online to all these different websites where people sell their books, do you support them in that process as well?
Yeah, I set up everything for my clients so they don't just work with me on the strategy, the structure, the layout, the design, the print and the publishing. I also get their books up online for them, whether they want paperback, a hardback, or an ebook as well. So that then they can also get their books printed that way without having to commit to any particular number of copies. Two, if somebody wants to get their book, they can download it immediately. But what I love about it is it puts the power back to my authors, because I am creating their accounts for them. I'm uploading them. So then they have full transparency on all their sales figures. When book sales come through, they're not having to wait for figures to be reported back to them from other publishers. So there's a lot of transparency there, and particularly for people who like to be speakers, get on stage or do training, and maybe they're doing slides and want to put up a QR code or even talk about where their book can be found. And whether it's asking the audience to scan the QR code on the slide, or whether it's go get it. I have the book discounted for this week only because I knew I was coming to this conference. Go get it now for a reduced price. They then can see how well their training and their speaking has converted into sales for their book as well. A number of my clients also, use their print copies to bring them along to training events as well, and then just order more as they need them without committing to print copies as well. And so they can order them from their online accounts without having to go to a printer each time as well. So there's loads of choices. I'm all about putting choices and options back in people's pockets.
Well, I can see that you take your client through a whole journey process, from idea to conception, and then publishing the book, and then helping them with online sales and things like that. Do you find at the end of the process, when the product is in their hand, that the author kind of has changed in terms of confidence levels and have an idea now where they're going and what they'd like to do?
It's a really emotional experience for everybody across the board. And lots of people send me pictures of them holding their book, or they might send me a voice message, and I can sense the emotion, the excitement, the delight, the feeling of a fulfillment and accomplishment that comes with it. There's something very grounding as well about holding your book in your hands that you say, I did it. No one can ever take it from me. It's powerful because a lot of people talk about doing it, but they never do it. But when you actually do it, it's so fulfilling. And it really is such a sense of pride, but also it is an emotional, it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster when you get your book, because all along it's just on your computer or it's your notes, and even you're looking at it on the screen, but holding it and you're going through each page, you're looking at the cover, you're turning it over. It's just like, it's like a dream come true for a lot of people. That's how I would sum it up. And I mean, for me to help make people's dreams come true is like, wow, it's one of the best jobs in the world, really, isn't it?
I can imagine, because you're taking someone's creativity and imagination and making it a real product in their hand.
Yes. No matter what book it is, from the biggest book to the smallest book, from the shortest time they work with me to the longest time, it's the same. And that's what I love, because if you don't have that proper relationship with your client, it's going to be a thank God that's over, versus wow, doesn't it look amazing? Thank you so much. And that's what I love. And yeah, you could say it's my ego probably is being fed as well, but I like to think it's a deeper purpose other than ego is being fulfilled. on my side too.
And Orla, as someone's listening today that is thinking as they're hearing you speak that they love to write a book or they like to get in contact with you, what's the best way to get in contact?
I think maybe go to my website to check out a little bit of who I am, how I work, and then just send me a message through the contact page on orlakellypublishing.com, and I get back to everyone in person.
And what would be your gentle advice to them?
Gentle advice is just do it. A lot of time, dreams get put on hold because people might say, oh, I was thinking of writing a book, or I was thinking of getting a book published, and then meet so many people who will just say, well, do you really want to do that? Or have you got the time? Or, you should look into it. There's loads of crooks out there. And I always think, do you know what? Just take the first step yourself. You can tell people about it later.
Orla, which do you prefer, a paper notebook or a laptop when you're writing?
I have both. I have notebook in front of me all the time. It's where I have my notes, and then I get great satisfaction on crossing things off. I do have a calendar to keep me on track for when I have meetings and schedules. And unfortunately, I also have children's alarms on my phone that my daughter's in the middle of her pre-exams at the moment. So, I suppose I'm in the very lucky position in that I have my own business, but my family and my personal life, has to go on, and there's no one without the other, so I'm very full on. I'm very practical. And I love both. I love the technology aspect of the laptop, but I think there's great satisfaction in writing things down at the same time.
I do love a paper notebook myself.
I do.
Or would you ever consider writing another book yourself and publishing it?
I do. I want to. I really do want to. It is a thing with timing. When I go on holidays, I actually bring paperbacks with me to read versus looking at a screen. And I have started to, since the new year, take a half day on Fridays for myself, just totally for myself, to sit down and just get a spot next to a window where there's natural light and just curl up and read, because I have so many print books I'm looking to catch up on, and I chose each of them for a different reason. So my aim is to feed my mind with more knowledge and also relaxation and enjoyment of the books that I want to read. Yes, 100%. I want to get back writing myself. 100%.
And do let us know when you do that, because we love to see the book. Maybe a sequel to Owly, maybe?
I know. I would like getting my kids involved, because it's funny, because my son now is on work experience with me this week. So I'm actually going to be getting him a bit involved with the publishing experience this week to give him a flavour of things. Especially, it's funny because he was the catalyst that started off the whole Owly journey and my journey into publishing. And now he's on work experience this week for me.
And what would you say is one of your favourite books to read?
Oh, one of my favourite books to read is actually a fiction book by one of my all-time favourite Irish authors, Danny Dunn from Mullingar. He wrote 2 books with me. He wrote The Spindle Tree and The Road to Bethany. Oh my goodness. Both amazing, inspirational books. Fiction, but set in Ireland in the 1950s. 2 big books. The Spindle Tree, I think, is probably about that thick. I don't even think I have a copy of it behind me anymore. I've probably given it away to any spare copies I had. I've given them away to say, you have got to read this book. It's a book I, even as a publisher, didn't want to finish working on it. I loved the story so much. I just remember feeling so sad when it was over, because I just wanted it to continue. Now, he did go on to write The Road to Bethany, so he probably would be my favourite Irish author I've worked with so far. But look, I work with so many other amazing authors, but in terms of my personal stories, there was just something about this book Spindle Tree and The Road to Bethany, I just absolutely loved. And he was a pleasure to work with as well. He's a retired school teacher. Again, it just shows you I know so much about these people. We still stay in contact. And his son is an amazing musician as well, so, and lovely family. So yeah, I do remember my authors, and it fills me up working with people versus drains me when I'm working with, the people who I love working with.
And you can really tell that you have great passion and you take great care in the people that come to you as well, and helping them through the whole process as well. And we can see your joy in your work really shines through, Orla, as well. So it's lovely to see, because, it's not easy being an entrepreneur, being your own businesswoman, but it's great to see that you take so much joy in what you do.
Thank you. I do. And the day it stops being joyful for me was the day I will retire.
And I hope that won't happen for a very long time yet.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Crystal.
And before we close up, Orla, I'd just love to ask you something that I ask all my guests. At this stage of your life and work, what does living an empowered life mean to you today?
Living an empowered life is waking up, putting your feet on the ground and being glad and excited to see what's in store for you today.
And thank you, Orla, so much for this conversation. It really feels like a reminder that our stories do matter, and that sometimes the thing we're afraid to create is the very thing someone else might need. If you would like to connect with Orla or explore the possibility of writing your own book, you'll find Orla's details in the show notes below. And if this conversation stirred something in you, or if there's a little voice saying, maybe I do have something to share, take this as a gentle nudge to reach out to Orla and get your story published. You don't have to have it all figured out, as Orla said in the conversation. You just have to begin. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep showing up for the life you want to create. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who has always dreamed of writing a book. And don't forget to tune in this Sunday for a new Sunday Reset Rituals. Take care and have a good week. Until next time.